Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining us for our Emerge Stronger with IBM Planning Analytics webinar. We're very happy to have you here. We are recording this session, so just a heads up on that. If you're not comfortable with that, please feel free to drop now and we'll send out the recording to you later. Our presenters today, Brian Simpson, who is the Analytics Practice Lead here at NewComp Analytics, and one of my favorite presenters, Jim Collins, who is the DS and AI Strategy Executive from IBM. So today we're trying to keep this really short because we're very cognizant of the Zoom fatigue and how much screen time everybody's getting. So we're going to try and keep this to 30 minutes. We've got a little bit of a context talk track, what's going on with Jim. Brian will handle a demo, and I'll be fielding the questions that come in through the chat. The chat is in the GoToWebinar app, so please feel free to put your questions there, and I will present those to Brian and Jim as appropriate. So we'll continue from there. So a little bit about NewComp. Most of you already know us, but just in case maybe you forgot a detail about us, NewComp is a world-class analytics firm. We specialize in implementing everything from your data sources forward. We make it look pretty, we help you do what-if scenario modeling on it, and we help you do advanced analytics on it. So that's a little bit about us. We are based here in Canada, and we service all of the Americas. So with that, I think, Jim, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Erica. Appreciate the intro, and it's always great to be working with NewComp here in Canada. Yeah, I miss being able to get across the border, but certainly we're still working together on a regular basis. I love the title of this webinar, Emerge Stronger with IBM Planning Analytics. I like Emerge. The first slide that I'm going to show basically talks about uncertainty and risk. They're now part of the normal course of business, and it's a normal course of business that we have to deal with. And we're looking at, where's our growth going to come from? But a lot of companies are looking at how are we going to exist? Are we still going to survive? So as a result, business leaders got to steer the enterprise back to growth and profit, cope with challenges, etc., protect their organization. And I got to tell you, this slide is something that I used 9 years ago. This exact slide. Uncertainty and risk, they're part of the normal course of business. They were part of the normal course of business then. They're part of the normal course of business now. We've just had some other things that have thrown monkey wrenches into how we do business. And of course, COVID is that's unprecedented what we've had to do. So from a planning analytics standpoint, I want to just tell you a little bit about, where we see it, what we talk about when we go out to customers, and to let you know that it's more than just the annual budget cycle. It really goes across the entire organization. When we first started talking about planning analytics, or when we talked about enterprise planning back in the day when we came over from Cognos to IBM, we talked about talking to the Office of Finance and bringing it to the Office of Finance. But it's not just the Office of Finance. It really spans the entire enterprise, because the whole enterprise is looking for accurate information, getting the right people involved, getting the information to the right people, and making sure that it's timely, but then also being able to model and create scenarios, and everyone dancing to the same sheet of music. Ultimately, we talk about this leading to improved optimal performance, but it actually drives the bottom line. That's exactly what we're trying to do, and the entire enterprise is a function of that. Plan for anything, be ready for everything. That's kind of our moniker now, planning and analysis for the enterprise. It's difficult to do. It's difficult to do consistently, but it's something that I think everyone is starting to look at. We want to be able to plan for anything. There's always going to be the monkey wrench that comes out, but you really want to be able to be ready for everything. So we talk about disconnected plans and disconnected financial and operational plans. If you have silos, and a lot of companies have a lot of silos where marketing will be working here, manufacturing will be working here, finance will be working here, and they all have different sets of numbers. It's analytical silos, and it really doesn't help the business at all, because it's just very disconnected and very disjointed. And of course, lengthy and painful planning cycles take forever. So I talk to a lot of CFOs, I talk to a lot of finance folks, I talk to a lot of managers, and I say to them, how confident are you in your data? And they say, well, it's the best I have available. Well, yeah, but how confident are you? Well, it's the best I have available. That's kind of a thing, it's almost becomes a catch-22. So we really want to be able to create that single version of the truth, being able to be agile enough to make changes when you want to make changes, and then be able to do what-ifing analysis, which is something that, in my opinion, is probably one of the key factors in the planning analytics solution. So what are business leaders struggling with? And I will tell you that I am going through this kind of quick because we only want to take a half hour of your time. But this whole deck will be available to you. I believe that Erica and Brian will send it out, and as well as I think they'll also have a recording of it. So if you want to be able to take a look at the demo again, that would be a very good way to do it. So lengthy planning cycles, I mentioned them before, challenges with data management, inaccuracies in silos. You want to break down the silos. Everybody wants to just break down the silos. And when we talk about that, we talk about Excel spreadsheets. You're never going to take Excel spreadsheets away from me, but I'm going to use them as for what they were meant to be used for, and that's an analytical tool, not to manage the entire multi-billion-dollar databases. The companies that we talk to, 40% of the companies that IBM talks to are managing their entire multi-billion-dollar businesses with spreadsheets. Let me repeat that. 40% of the companies that we talk to are managing their entire multi-billion-dollar businesses on spreadsheets. That's pretty scary when you think about the lack of collaboration, when you think about the errors that could happen. You hit a space bar and all of a sudden, you have a text reference that you have to find. It becomes nuts. But what we talk about from our planning analytics standpoint, you've got all these Excel spreadsheets. There's advantages to Excel, easy to understand, flexible, et cetera, but the disadvantages far and away outweigh the advantages. What we talk about is good decisions are integrated decisions, not connected, but integrated, so that everyone is dancing to the same sheet of music. We say coordinated decisions lead to coordinated execution, greater business performance. Yes, that's true. But this, if you take a look, remember what those Excel spreadsheets in the center look like, all the data sources that are out there, and there's just so much more data today than there ever was before, and so many more sources. We want to be able to manage it. We want to be able to pull that in to one single version of the truth, and then if you may want to export it to Excel, you may want to export it to a BI tool, et cetera, but there are no disadvantages. They're all advantages. There's still Excel. We still have Excel interfaces. It's still got that same look and feel. Faster planning cycles, collaboration. It's great for collaboration, and that's something that I think that collaboration and consensus become a key, and you're linking your financial and operational plans. It doesn't mean that you don't create things that might be a little bit different, but you end up with a consensus, and that's a key. And of course, we put predictive analytics. Now, some of the things that we talk about when we talk about integrated planning and we talk about planning across the entire enterprise, you see, I've listed a few, from an integrated planning standpoint: HR, operations, marketing, sales, finance, etc. But these are things that we have done with planning analytics, where we've tied the whole enterprise together: workforce planning, headcount and staffing planning, operations, demand planning and supply chain planning. And of course, supply chain goes across the entire enterprise. There's sales, forecasting, and finance. But everyone is dancing to the same sheet of music. I can't stress that enough. And of course, the value delivered when you're linking your financial and operational plans, it means that you're striving for success within the entire operation. So this kind of gives you, if you build from the bottom up in this little pyramid, these are the benefits that you get. Sure, there's faster budgeting and forecasting cycles and increased forecast accuracy. And I will say something about forecast accuracy. If you're 100% accurate in your forecast, then something's wrong. Somebody's sandbagging, because the differences that you find and the variances that you find within your forecast are meant to be learning tools. So the 100% accuracy, that's a nice goal, but that's something that's probably unattainable if you're doing it right. But as you move up the platform, as you move up this pyramid here, identifying new opportunities, faster, more informed decisions, and ultimately, when you get to the top, improved financial outcomes. And that becomes a nice pyramid of benefits from a planning analytics standpoint. It's not about searching for better answers. It's really about searching for better questions. That's what we look for, and that's what we look for with planning analytics. Having the right information to the right people at the right time in a timely manner, and then being agile enough to be able to make changes. That becomes the key. So if you're ready, these questions are really quick. What data could you leverage in your business if converted to knowledge would make your business better? What's the opportunity cost of not doing some of this stuff? What's the opportunity cost are your competitors doing? I assure you a lot of your competitors will be doing it. What benefits could you gain in being able to detect hidden patterns, et cetera, et cetera? What's your skill gap? There are skill gaps. And how collaborative is your organization? These are just thought process questions that you can ask, and maybe ask some of the other folks within your organization. At this point, that's my spiel, and I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Brian, who's going to take you through a demo of the planning analytics solution, and hopefully you have some questions at the end. So I thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jim. Let me just share my screen here. Perfect. So I was going to say we usually do these demos in an hour. I'm going to try and cram it all into 15 minutes. I've got a lot of cool things to show you guys today. If anyone wants to see more or like a more thorough demo, please reach out to us after. I'd be happy to go through all of this in more detail with you guys. So first and foremost, for anyone that has seen Planning Analytics before, this is the latest release. It's received a couple of enhancements that are really cool. It's received a new front end. So there's some interesting things to show. I'm going to jump right in. I've logged into an IBM cloud server. This is my landing page for Planning Analytics. I've logged in as an admin, so I get to see everything. One of the latest features that IBM has added is this idea of a structured framework for my application, for my plan cycle. And we call these, sometimes they're referred to as workflow. So I'm going to open this as a contributor and give you kind of a preview of what this looks like. Now, in its simplest form, this really manifests as a task list for my users. It gives them basically a step-by-step list on the left-hand side of what they need to do in order to get their plan done. And you can see here, we've kind of laid it out based on the basic sort of modules that we might find in a budget or a forecast. They include revenue, headcount, OPEX, capital, and then at the end, I've got some variances to review. I can assign due dates to these. I can put security on them, and I can make it so the users have to actually submit it, and then it gets locked afterward. The basics of planning analytics are it's a data collection tool. We want our users to come into the centralized system, fill out their budget, fill out their forecast. It's all secured, it's auditable, it's governed, it's all in one place, and it's real time. I can actually make changes directly in this data grid. This is meant to be a product unit forecast. At the top, I've got different filters that correspond to sort of different areas of my business that I might slice and dice by. This particular organization sort of divvies up the plan based on geographical regions. So I've got this little region filter. I'm an administrator, so I actually have the ability to jump right up to the total company. And when I do that, you'll see the visualizations and the data grid itself will update and show me the total company. And that's because I've got security permissions to go right up to the total company. But for today, I actually want to do my planning at the Massachusetts level. Okay, so I've got the ability to kind of slice and dice at any level of detail. I also have the ability to fill out the plan at any level of detail within the organization. And so even though I'm looking at total company here, I actually want to drop back down and do some data entry at the Massachusetts level. So I'm going to open this up and we'll go back down to that level. So when I'm filling out a plan, I usually want to start from a starting point. You can see that I've got data in here already. It's been pre-seeded, and we've actually imported data from an external system. And now it's available for me to make changes. Now, I actually want to work in what we call a personal workspace, and sometimes referred to as a sandbox. And there's a little icon in the top menu bar where I can select a sandbox. I've got a couple of these created already, and I'm just going to pick the one that's labeled demo here, and it's going to flip me over to a sandbox. This gives me an area to do data entry without necessarily committing it as a final version. One of the things I really love about planning analytics is I can make data changes at anywhere in the hierarchy. And so you can see this 4G smartphones node. This is actually a product roll-up. I've only got a couple of products in here. And I can actually make changes at the parent level. I'm also at the full year. And so I've got all my fiscal periods kind of laid out across the columns. And I'm going to make a change here. And I'm going to say, well, we're selling 5G smartphones now. So I might want to make a change and say that we're going to sell fewer of these 4G smartphones. The general idea here is to put data into the grid, roll it all up. As I kind of look through these different tabs you can see across the top, I've got lots of different ways that I can slice and dice the data, lots of different visualization styles that I can look at, and lots of options for building these dashboards. And I want to stress that everything that you see on the screen is customizable, from the look and feel, the layout, the color scheme. We can tweak all of this to meet your business. And that includes not just the colors and the layout, but also the model itself. And so planning analytics is meant to be a build solution. It's meant to be something that we customize for your organization, something that we can actually fit your organization's requirements into. And so as we kind of click through these screens, you see different visualizations pop up, lots of options for how we model the business. One really neat feature that IBM has added recently is the ability to do predictive forecasting. This is a really neat feature where I can select some records in my data set. There's a little icon in the top here where I can open up the forecast. I've got some advanced options for how I configure the forecast in here, but I'm just going to show you a quick preview of this. If I hit the preview window, it's looking at my historical data in the model and providing me with a time series prediction for the following year. So I've given it data from 2020 and 2021, and I'm allowing it to predict out the 2022 forecast. And it's giving me a level of confidence. That's the little blue range that you see there. You might also notice that my predictive accuracy as listed in the top corner is low. And that's because I haven't given it enough data. I've really only given it 24 data points to do this prediction, but it's still coming up with a line, and it's still populating my model with a predictive forecast. And I can dig into all the statistical details of this if you really want to look at how the data science is done behind the scenes. So I think that's a really neat feature that IBM has added. As I kind of step through these different steps for my workflow, the idea here is that it's sort of a guided analysis for my users. We can dig into a headcount plan. This is an example of planning by named individual where I would fill out a specific individual in here and maybe pick a job type and a job code. We have the option of then sort of digging into employee details. So if I wanted to behind the scenes calculate all of the component expenses, the benefits, the taxes, all of that can be calculated behind the scenes. I don't necessarily need to show this to the users, but it's certainly available as an option. And we can always secure this as well. So I often get the question of, well, hey, salary information is privileged information. Can we apply security to that? And of course, the answer is yes. We can apply security at any level of detail within the model. As I kind of click through the rest of these steps, I'm skipping the step where I might submit them and lock them, but we can then go into our OpEx plan. We can model different areas of the business in different ways. So for OpEx, as an example, some of our GL accounts, some of our operating expenses might be planned just by dollar amounts entered into the monthly fiscal periods. Some of them might be line item details that I want to break out. So for any given account, I want to record detailed line items and store a description of each of those, but only submit the sum of those line items. And so I can build a screen that allows my users to enter all those sort of detailed items in and keep that detail and roll it over into the next fiscal period, the next plan, or the next forecast. Some of my OpEx expenses might be phased annual expenses. So taking an annual amount and then spreading it over the fiscal periods, following a specific pattern, whether it's the seasonality of the business or something like a Christmas peak or even on quarter ends. And as we kind of step through this, we're always driving to an end result, whether it's your financial statements or an export that goes to another system. In this case, I'm displaying a P&L. This is a departmental P&L that's made available to the users in line with the application. And as they make changes, they can see those changes reflected in the P&L in real time. And we can even build a full P&L dashboard leveraging Planning Analytics' visualization engine, its metrics. We can use conditional formatting to show traffic light indicators, the red and the green indicators. And of course, this is designed to accept input as well. The idea here is that we're gathering explanations on material variances. And so I can type in things like new marketing campaign, that might be related to this negative variance that you see here. And so throughout the application, we're accepting input from the users and we're accepting commentary as well, both numerical data and string data. Now, this was a very quick overview of a typical planning analytics application. There's a couple of more quick things I really want to show you. Jim had mentioned Excel in his presentation. Of course, no planning application would be complete without an Excel add-in. Here you can see I'm in Excel. I've got an Excel toolbar that's special to Planning Analytics. And this is a live connection to that centralized cloud-based Planning Analytics server. And in here, I can do all my work in Excel. I can drill up and drill down on these products just by double clicking. And we can do data entry directly in here that will send that data back to the server. So my users have the option of working on the new web front end, the very good looking web front end, or if they prefer Excel, they can still get to the same data through Excel. And it's important to emphasize this is still real time. It will still respect all of the data security that I create in the data model. And all of the formulas and security still exists on the database side. So if I click on one of these cells, you'll notice there's no formula in this cell. It's a real-time link to the server, and it's retrieving that data. And so I thought that was a really important thing to show. And of course, we offer training on both interfaces. So whether you've got users that prefer Excel or users that want to work in Planning Analytics workspace, they have the option to do either. So that's the Excel add-in. There's a number of different areas within Planning Analytics that I would love to drill a little bit deeper on. And I'd like for each of you to think about anything that you might want to see, or think about your particular business cases or applications. I'm really only scratching the surface. If you've been looking very closely, you see on some of these dashboards, there's a number of different tabs up here that might correspond to other areas of the business that you might be interested in. Allocations is an example of something that's a little bit more advanced that we would often model in Planning Analytics. So whether it's overhead expenses or revenue allocations, you might have also noticed exchange rates and forecast details. And so there's a lot of different areas, as Jim showed on his slide, a lot of different areas of the business that can all come together in a tool like Planning Analytics. So I would encourage you to reach out and let's explore your use case together. And with that, I think I'm going to open it up to questions. Did we get any questions, Erica?
We don't have any yet. So just a reminder, because some people were joining late, there is a question chat in the application. So please feel free to submit your questions there.
Brian, one thing you touched on, which I think is just such a great feature of Planning Analytics. You said, you make the change and then you see the impact instantaneously. I mean, it goes through the entire model. You make one change and it goes through the entire model. Any of the drivers that you have, it works through all the drivers, and you see the immediate impact on the bottom line, on the net income, or in a balance sheet, or whatever thing you're looking at, whatever piece you're working on. And that to me is something that, from a what-ifing analysis, we see a lot of folks sitting in the boardroom and they say, well, what would happen if we did this? What would happen if we did that? And they're making decisions and making big business decisions based on just doing a little bit of what-if analysis. So I think that, to me, is back in the day when I didn't have it. I mean, I had Excel, I had Lotus 1-2-3, I had VisiCalc, but to have had something like this I'd probably have more hair, but
Yeah, I'll tell you anecdotally, we've definitely heard stories of clients of ours that have been putting this up on the boardroom screen in front of the executives, and instead of, when there's a question of, hey, what would it look like if, we increase the bonus of all our employees by 1%, to be able to do that live in, on the screen in the boardroom versus taking that away and spending, a day, 2 days, a week coming up with that answer, that is a game changer right there. The ability to do it live and on the fly.
And realistically, you don't have that kind of time anymore. It's not like, hey, I'll get back to you. Even I'll get back to you in a couple hours. No, that's unacceptable, because
that's right.
The speed of business is at light speed. I mean, it's, things are changing. Things are changing.
Well, the world seems to change every 3 months, right? So we've got to be able to change with it.
Yep.
And plan for it.
That's right. Yeah, you got it. And so I think that's a huge differentiator and something that we hear very often as one of the big advantages to having a centralized real-time system like this.
And another advantage from Planning Analytics, from our planning and the IBM Planning Analytics solution, is we can deploy on the customer's platform of choice. It can be, if they want it on-prem, if they want to stay on-prem, they can stay on-prem. If they want to go on a cloud, they can go on a cloud. If they want a hybrid model where they want to even take it to another cloud and keep some of their stuff on-prem, we can accommodate that. Competition can't.
Yeah, exactly. We do have one question. That's a good one. The question is, can you talk about how Planning Analytics connects to databases? Does data need to be transformed before it comes in?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. So So on the screen here, I've got a couple of things that I would have sourced out of an external system, a database. And that's really my data, so my actuals, and my metadata, which is my dimensions, my hierarchies. And so as an example, I've got a product list here on the rows. And even though you can see up in the top corner, I've got a little button for adding a product, it is often the case where we want to source that metadata from an external system. And so the way Planning Analytics does that is it has a built-in ETL tool. ETL stands for extract, transform, load. And it's actually going to reach out in an automated way and pull both data and metadata into the Planning Analytics database. Typically, we would schedule that to occur overnight so that every day you get fresh data in. But we can actually kick that off on demand as well. And I can even put another button just like this one on the screen that says refresh data, and a user will push that. Planning Analytics will reach out to the source system and pull that data and pull that metadata in. And so all of that can be automated. And Jim and I used to do these presentations quite often. We love talking about automation. And we would always say, like, one of the biggest operational efficiencies you'll get for your planning process with a tool like Planning Analytics is the ability to automate. So gone are the days of manually downloading data, staging it in Excel, cutting and pasting and cutting that Excel book into 100 different books that you then email out. We can automate that whole process such that you don't need to do any manual work. We reduce the chance of error-prone cutting and pasting problems, reduce the chance of formula errors, and really speed that whole process up and give your users confidence that the data that they're looking at is refreshed, it's up to the minute, and it's timely and it's accurate. And I think that's a huge, huge advantage to a system like Planning Analytics as well. Great question. We're just at 2:30. Is there any last questions there, Erica?
No, we're good to go. Gosh, you guys covered it all. They're trained professionals now.
Awesome,
So
great.
Feel free to reach out.
Yep, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to do a longer demo or a customized demo for you guys, and happy to answer any other questions. And we will send out the PowerPoint presentation and the recording.
Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.